This is a love story. I love this story. There are a lot of stories we're going to tell you, mostly based on Chinese mythology. There are stories of friendship, love, forgiveness, transformation. There are quests. They are all lovely love stories. These myths take place in a forest clearing outside of Xi'an. What matters inside this forest clearing, those myths are happening, have been happening, and will happen forever. Inside of the forest clearing, and therefore inside of the myths, there is a man and a woman. The two of them are karmically connected. They are intertwined. In some lives, they are entangled in knots. In some lives, they are tensioned, taut, threatening to break. Sometimes the tie is severed too soon. However, in this life, the strands of yarn run parallel to each other. All their stories are love stories. Inside of the man and the woman, and therefore inside of the forest clearing, and therefore inside of the myths, lies a profound draw towards one another. It seems so internal, so deep and unexplainable, two threads connecting heart to heart. At the same time, something seems to have guided them to meet, some hand or wind pushing them gently by the back. And of course, they fall in love.
That was, I think, maybe a lot.
You're right. I mean, how should we do this?
From the beginning, inside out, bottom to top.
Yeah. Let's start over. Bottoms up.
So start with the myths.
Yes.
You or me?
I'm good.
Okay. I'll go. Hi. I'm going to try to describe these myths. We are very familiar with them, but I'm going to try and describe them carefully for you. So there's these myths, these Chinese myths, right? In the first myth, there's a god in Chinese mythology called Pongu. He was the first being. He burst forth from an egg of chaos and lived in isolation for thousands of years before becoming part of our world and creating the earth. But the myth itself is not about Pongu. The myth itself is about Sun Wukong. Pongu tells the story of Sun Wukong trying to gain immortality and power and assert his place among the gods. He goes about it pretty poorly. I mean, can you blame him? It was just rejection. Anyway, I don't want to spoil the ending, so I think you should probably talk now.
In the second myth, there's this deity called Lan Sai He. They're one of the 8 immortals. Super cool. Immortal. Patron god of florists, gardeners, and musicians. Just like the last myth, the myth isn't really about him. The myth is actually about Guan Yu, one of the greatest warriors of Chinese history. He's famous for his bond with his brothers, Liu Bei and Zhang Fei. But something changes in Guan Yu after he comes back from working for Liu Bei's rival, Cao Cao. He does not lose loyalty for Liu Bei, but he does gain respect for Cao Cao. He really didn't mean to. He was a victim of circumstance, but when he came back, his brothers did not recognize him.
So, on to maybe a happier note?
Sort of.
There's a goddess, Guan Yin, not to be confused with Guan Yu. They're very different. Guan Yin is about compassion and love and forgiveness. She wants to see love succeed, but that only kind of happens here, not entirely. These two lovers, Zhu and Liang, those are their last names, they meet in school. When Zhu is disguised as a man, she falls in love with him. He has complicated heterosexual feelings for Zhu, so they can't really be with each other in school, you know?
There's an arranged marriage. Not between Zhu and Liang, between Zhu and another man. A confession, a funeral, and a wedding. It ends when Zhu is having her wedding procession and sees Liang's grave. She weeps over his grave, it cracks up, she jumps in, you know, star-crossed lovers, tragedy. Out of the cracked tomb flies 2 butterflies, Zhu and Liang, never to be separated again. I guess that's kind of a spoiler. So, those are the myths.
Good job.
You too.
I suppose we could talk about the forest clearing?
Right. Okay, I can start this time. The forest clearing is full of energy. It breathes like any living thing might breathe. The clearing may look empty to the naked eye, but when you actually stand inside, you realize it's full. Full of vibrations, electricity, and stories. Full of 2 random people. I wish I could actually take you, but, you know. But because we can't take you, I'm trying to give you an idea of how it feels to stand there.
Because the forest clearing only exists in the play. We've technically gone there in a way. I mean, we've gone there more thoroughly and more often than anyone else has. So it's not a real place, but because the forest clearing is in a play, you can go there in the play.
Right, so if anything, you're going to go very soon.
True.
You might get the sense that the forest clearing is very separate from the real world in the play. You might try and figure out the differences between the real world and the forest clearing, but we're not really going to talk about that.
No. And you might get the sense that the forest clearing is very separate from your real world, the one you live in most of the time, I assume. You might try and figure out the differences between your reality and the forest clearing, but we're basically not going to talk at all about that.
Not because your real world is boring or anything, but because I don't think the forest clearing is any more strange than things that happen in your real world. Very odd things happen there too. And to say your real world is real would mean the play and the forest clearing are fake. But when you stand there, that's not how it feels. It feels... No. Like, it doesn't feel real, but more than fake, certainly. Okay, I think that's that.
I think so too.
We can move on to the characters.
Okay, my turn?
Go ahead.
We're very familiar with the man and the woman, but I'm going to try very hard to describe the woman carefully. There is a woman in the forest clearing. This character is adopted from China and knows nothing about Chinese culture. She's going to a forest clearing outside of Xi'an to learn more about Chinese culture. When she walks down the street, people think that she should know Chinese culture. They try to speak to her in Chinese, but she only took Chinese class in school and is really bad at speaking on the fly. They say when you learn a language, you learn a culture, and she doesn't know either of those things.
Oh, okay, my turn. There's a man in the forest. The man in the forest is a trans man. He transitioned when he was a young adult. As soon as he transitioned, everyone expected him to know what it's like to be a man, but he doesn't even know what it's like to grow up as a boy. So he's playing this catch-up game. Whenever he walks down the street, people see him as a man. They call him sir and young man, but he doesn't even know what being a man is supposed to mean. Like, gender is fake, right? So why does he feel so strongly like a man?
So, there's a man and a woman. They're souls. No, not souls. Mind streams? Streams of consciousness? Yeah, that's what it is. So, their streams of consciousness have met in a past life and will meet in a future life. That's so wordy. They have met in a past life. That's just as accurate, I'd say.
Right, because karma. Well, some people think it's about right and wrong and good and evil, and it kind of is, but it's mostly about cause and effect. Everything has a cause and an effect. Cause, they have met and will meet. Effect, they are meeting again now, in this life. In this life, they are co-workers in America. Before they were co-workers, they lived in all the same places. It's kind of remarkable that they haven't met in this life yet, but here they are.
Remarkable too, because their past lives together have not always been easy. You know, feuding families, star-crossed lovers, all that. That's not to say these lives now have been easy. It's just much easier for them to meet. Their circumstances draw them together. What's drawing them together is there's something missing, right? For the both of them. For the woman, she's missing part of her culture. For the man, he's missing a boyhood.
Missing, isn't exactly right. Because it's not like growing up American or growing up a girl is bad. It's not bad, it took up space that knowing Chinese culture and knowing being a boy could have filled instead. They're not, like, missing something like they're half people because of it. Like, let's say she was raised in China, or if he was raised a boy. They would be as full as they are now. But it's still like, what if, right? You get the sense that the thing that they're missing is each other. Karma and love draw them together, yes, but like I said, there's something internal there, too. Something they need from one another.
They are in this forest clearing experiencing Chinese myths, and also acting through the myths, sometimes over and over. And you get the sense that maybe these myths are their past lives, and if they could just understand why they are in this forest clearing right now, doing these myths, right? Maybe these myths are the key to the missing years of their lives, which are filled with America and girlhood.
They want to understand so they can move forward in their lives, so they can return to America and manhood and find out how to, proceed.
We did it! We clarified everything they need to know from your intro.
That's true. We did pretty good.
I agree.
But I think there's still more.
Other characters? I think the other characters are very important to the story, to our story and to the myths. I think you should know that. However, we'll meet them later. I think it's best if you discover them like the characters will. I think that's fine.
Now that that's covered, I think we should talk about us.
Us? Like us the actors?
Exactly.
Finally! Do you want to talk first?
Yeah, I mean the characters are important, sure, but I think there's something there about us. This is an actor.
Hi!
He plays the character of the man. The character of the man acts out the myths, so he's an actor acting as a man acting out the myths. I mean, you are a man. Duh, like you, the actor, you're a man. By the way, the actor who plays the man is also transgender. I think that's important. We're very familiar with each other. We're good friends. We've been rehearsing together for a while, but I'm going to try to describe him to you as if you have never met him. He has an easy smile. He looks inherently kind, like it comes from somewhere deep within him. Sorry, what color is your hair? Is it like brown-ish? Like floppy brown curly hair, a little on the long side of short. And dark brown or black eyes, depending on the lighting. Roughly, circular face, maybe a little heart-shaped. And a little gap. I also have a little gap. And he's wearing a shirt. A graphic shirt with some very cute penguins on it. He seems like the kind of person who would be easy to talk to. The kind of person who would be willing to talk to anyone about anything. Someone who is there for his friends.
Thanks. That was very flattering.
It's true.
Okay, so much pressure now. Okay, I'll describe you now. Okay. They play the part of the woman. The woman acts out the myth. So they are an actress acting as a woman acting out the myth. Now I'll describe them very carefully, even though I've been rehearsing with them for a very long time. They're wearing very big glasses that frame their little face. They have very proportional ears, a nice face shape, a nice little chin. They have a very straight smile, which I assume either comes from genetics or years of orthodontics. I also see that their hair was probably once a buzz cut, but is now growing out into this, I want to say pixie, but I don't know if that's the right word. Their hair is also blue, which goes nicely with the black undercut. It creates a very punk aesthetic. They are a person who thinks very deeply about things, and someone who takes things seriously, which is good. They are also a very perceptive person, and someone who isn't afraid to say things, even if it's a little spicy, which takes a certain caring.
Thank you. You may wonder what we, the actors, have to do with the show at all. I mean, we're supposed to be acting, right? We don't matter.
We play characters, and we bring something to those characters. How we look to each other now and how we look to you, that matters to the story, because the story is very culturally specific. We're dealing with Chinese culture and American culture and trans identity and cis identity and being adopted and being natural born, so there's a lot.
Right, like I'm Han Chinese. My family is from Hong Kong, though. Don't get it twisted. But it makes sense from a racial perspective that I'm playing the woman, don't you think? I'm not adopted, though I feel a kind of connection to the woman anyway. Like her, I don't know much about Chinese culture. I don't want to get too into it because this play is not about me, but I was also cut off from my heritage for reasons out of my control, so I get that.
You may be surprised, but I'm not Han Chinese. I don't know much about Chinese culture. Well, I'm very white. I'm Mormon funeral potatoes white. So I can't really truly represent that part of the play. Gender-wise is a good fit. Like you mentioned, the character is trans, and I am trans. I'm also very young and new to this, so I'm figuring out what kind of man I want to be too.
Ironically, gender is where I don't connect to this character as much, really. I mean, I don't identify as a woman, really, but I connect with the racial and cultural aspects of the play.
And funny enough, I don't connect with the racial and cultural aspects, so there's that. I think there is something that the man and the woman and us have in common, though. It's that feeling of disconnection from something. Something you're supposed to be born knowing or socialized into knowing. It feels like it should come natural, but it doesn't.
It's complicated. I know we talked about our identities and ourselves a little bit, and I promise we'll work through that as the play goes on, but we're not really going to talk about ourselves that much in the play, because we're not actors, we're playing characters. I think... Okay, hear me out. I know it's sort of hard and sort of strange to do in a normal play, but I think we should talk about the playwright.
Yeah, I think we'd better.
I am the playwright of the play. Yep, that's me. Maybe I'm not who you expected. Or maybe I am. But yeah, I wrote this play. Now, I suppose since the actors did, I should also start from bottoms up.
With the mess.
Before I started working on this play, I knew almost nothing about Chinese mythology. I listened to a podcast or two, or maybe read some books, but Chinese mythology was never integrated into my life, like, say, Greek myths or Roman mythology. Something about Chinese mythology has really drawn me in, though. It makes me feel closer to my race. Even though I know race and culture are not exactly the same, something about Chinese culture is intriguing. My best friend grew up in Taiwan and Shanghai, and he is a lot more familiar with Chinese myths. His name is Austin. Now, I don't know where he is. I assume he'll watch this, but he's a busy guy, so... Okay, you. I'm going to refer to you as if you were Austin. Is that okay? You don't have to say anything. I'm just going to refer to you as if you were Austin so everyone can imagine what Austin is like. You don't have to pretend to be Austin. Everyone knows you're not Austin. But that's okay. It's okay to be yourself right now. Austin is a really helpful guy. He volunteered his time to teach me about Chinese mythology, and he really didn't have to, but I'm glad he did. Not him. Real Austin. Real Austin is very helpful. Though, you are helping me and the audience imagine things about Austin. But this is an actor, not Austin. Real Austin is very helpful. Although, this actor is also very helpful, but not very good at dramaturgy. He is very good at acting. Everyone, please thank Austin if you see him, because he volunteered his time to teach me about Chinese mythology, and he really didn't have to. But I'm glad he did. It's important that Austin knows about Chinese mythology and that I don't, because this play is about stolen identity. Not like cybersecurity. The characters are not getting their bank accounts drained. It's like stolen identity. Lost culture, disconnected, you know? I would like to not butcher the myths. I think I could say, well, the characters don't know Chinese myths, so they don't need to be accurate. But that sounds like a cop-out. My process of learning these myths is the same process that my characters will be going through. It is important for me and to this play that I earnestly go through this process and learn, because my characters will be doing the same.
To the characters?
Yeah, of course. I am the playwright of the play. I know they said they're the playwright, but I'm also the playwright, right? As the playwright of the play, let me tell you, the experiences that the main character experiences are also my experiences. Well, some of them are, not all of them. Like, I don't know what it means to be treated like a man, much less act like one. So, it's about that. And it's also about all those things that it said the woman character feels, like how she doesn't know half her culture. They say when you learn a language, you learn a culture, and well, I took Chinese for 6 years, and I have the vocabulary of a 5-year-old, so let's just say I'm not fluent in Chinese or the culture.
I'm not even ethnically Chinese, me, the playwright. I'm Chinese minority. 98% of China is Han Chinese, the other 2% are Chinese minority. I'm Dai specifically, I'm also half Vietnamese. I grew up with a yearning for Chinese culture, and I'm not even Han Chinese. I wrote a whole play about Chinese mythology, and I'm not even Han Chinese. This is all according to Ancestry.com, by the way, but it makes sense. The Dai people live right across from the Vietnamese border. A lot of Vietnamese people cross the border into the area of China where the Dai people live. I've also been told all my life I don't look Chinese, I look Filipino or Vietnamese or somewhere else in Southeast Asia, whatever. But it makes sense. I like to think that my biological mother and father were star-crossed lovers. One of them immigrated to China and they fell in love. They were both immigrants in their country and couldn't support a child, so they left me on the doorsteps of a police station in China. The police station part is true about me, the rest I made up. Technically, at the time, the one-child policy and a bunch of other stuff could get you in trouble for putting your kid up for adoption. No open adoptions. So I was just left swaddled with a note that had my time of birth, nothing else identifying. So that's all I know. And that's probably all that I'll ever know.
I sometimes wonder if one of my past lives, me, the playwright, I wonder if I was my mother. Or my father, or both. I don't think about my biological family too much, just small things like I mentioned. I have my own family, so I spend my time worrying about them.
My mom. My actual mom. Some of this information is from her, obviously. She never really shied away from the adoption stuff, but when it came to Chinese culture, she didn't know as much. And I don't blame her for that. I mean, she did the best she could. We did Chinese New Year, we went to Chinatown, but, you know, she did the best she could. And she's pretty supportive of my being trans. It took her a second to get used to, but that's only natural. I mean, she was dreaming since she was a little girl to adopt a baby girl, and you know, it just takes some time to get used to a son. And you know, actually, she saw this medium once that said I was a man in a lot of my past lives, which I thought was pretty cool. But then the medium said I was a writer in a lot of my past lives, which I thought was really cool. And also kind of an ego boost, and kind of also a lot of pressure, so.
Right, like, I don't actually think that I was Shakespeare or that Shakespeare was me. He's just kind of the first guy that I thought of. But like, what if I was Shakespeare? Or like, what if I was Childish Gambino? That would be a tough act to follow.
And the thing about past lives is, the man and the woman, the characters in the play, they could be reincarnated into each other. Like, they could be the same person. They could have just forgotten they'd lived each other's lives. And I think that's beautiful, because they're both me. They are both representations of me, the playwright.
As the playwright, I have the scene on my computer. I wrote it in the Notes app, but like, it just doesn't seem finished in the Notes app, both because it's in the Notes app and, well, because it isn't finished.
I just keep writing the scene over and over, and it's like I discover something new every time. And I think that's how the man and woman feel in this play. Every scene is a rebirth and they learn something new. I'm going to finish the play over the next 3 months. Well, it's already finished. Like, the words are written, but it's not quite finished without all of you. It's basically just a journal entry if you guys don't watch it.
It's hard to write, because it's about me. And so the man and the woman are discovering these Chinese myths, and so am I, and they're questioning their identities, and so am I, and it's hard because they get to isolate being trans versus being an adopted Asian American, and they don't. So, it's hard.
I do think I'm finally ready to write about myself. I've written about AI and capitalism and superheroes, and I think I'm ready to write an autobiographical play. So that's what you're listening to now. If you don't watch it, it's basically just the journal entry. We're telling you all this because we're not really going to be talking directly about me after this.
Right. We're all speaking right now for the playwright because he's not actually here. But we figure it's important to talk about him a little bit in the beginning, not so much in the middle or the end.
So, we're all speaking for the playwright. We're the playwright, we're the actors, we are the characters, they're in the myth.
Phew! That's sorted.
Holy shit, that was hard!
Yeah, nice job.
Thanks, and thanks for listening.
I think we should start the play now.
Oh, right. I should have mentioned. The play hasn't started. I mean, it has started, but not the play with the characters. This has just been the prologue of the play where we talk about the play. I think we should start the play about the characters now.
I think you're right. Maybe, we're going to act now.
See you later.
Oh, one more thing. Last thing, seriously. I should bring it back to that thing I said at the top of the show. The love thing. This is a love story. I think that's important. It's a love story within myths, within a forest clearing, performed by two characters, played by two actors, who are both the playwright. These characters have something in common. They are both full and missing something at the same time. And they fall in love with the parts of each other that are whole and missing. It's a love story because I think these two parts of me need to fall in love with each other.